Hey, welcome back. It's Pause on Purpose. And, today it's just another great day because we're talking about this great characteristic called courage. And yesterday we talked about imparting courage based upon the experiences we've had in the past and helping people see how God has worked through that. Today we're going to talk about imparting courage with the experiences that we're currently going through. Now, if you talk to most counselors or professors who teach counseling, they will say, never talk to your counselee about your own struggles. When I look at the Bible, I see the exact opposite. I see that by allowing other people know about my struggles, it produces authenticity and it gives the message gravity. What do I mean by that? Well, if I talk about going through problems and how to fix it, one, two, three, that's great. It might be helpful for a certain crowd. But when I let them know that I have struggles and I share a personal experience without going into great details, I don't have to talk about it. I can just say, yeah, I'm going through this right now. And here's the situation and kind of give them an overview from about 10,000 feet. Then when I give those principles, one, two, three, it produces more authenticity. It gives more gravity to the message. And the Apostle Paul modeled this in his on our Pause on Purpose. He's writing to the church in Philippi. Now, remember, the church in Philippi is the church that he planted. You can read about this in Acts chapter 16. He's imprisoned for his faith, and he fights for the church by claiming he's a Roman citizen and he was treated unlawfully. It's one of the only times that we see Paul defending himself, but really he's not defending himself. If you think about it, he's defending for the religious liberty of that church in Philippi. Because when he says, I'm a Roman citizen and I'm mistreated, I'm also a Christian. And he linked those two things together so the church would be protected from the government from harassment. Again, you can read that in Acts chapter 16. But as he's going through this time, he gets out of there, he plants the church, and then a year or so later, Paul's back in prison at another location. And he writes a letter to the church in Philippi. And he lets them know that he's not only in prison, but his experiences in prison are now going to help them develop courage. Notice what he says. I'm in Philippians chapter 1, and I'm going to start in verse 19 because he is commending the church for their prayers that will help him eventually get out of prison. He knows God's not done with his life, and he knows God's going to let him out. He just doesn't know when. He says, I know that you pray for me and that the Spirit of Jesus Christ helps me. So those two things, the prayers of others and the Spirit of Jesus help us get through hard times. That's the first thing. He says, this will lead to my deliverance. Your prayers and the Spirit of God. But then he says this in verse 20. He says, for I fully expect and hope that I will never be ashamed, but that I will continue to be bold for Christ, as I have been in the past. And I trust that my life will bring honor to Christ, whether I live or die. And then the famous verse 21, we've all memorized this. For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. Wow. Paul knew something about death that we don't. He said death was a gain. But that's not where, that leads up to his very courageous statement. That is a very courageous statement. But what I want to focus on is how he helped the Philippians be courageous with what he was going through currently. He expresses his current situation. I'm in jail. And I'm going to be released based upon your prayers and the partnership of the Spirit of God. So thank you for doing that. But I also want you to know that your prayers are going to help deliver me out of prison so I can get back and do what God's called me to. But even if he doesn't, even if I die in this prison cell, I will preach Christ. And that's why I'm writing to you. See? He lets them know that prayers, the Spirit of Christ, and the encouragement of others is how we ourselves develop courage. And that allows us to encourage others to have courage based upon what we're going through. So, beloved, today, are you going through a struggle? Are you going through a hard time? Ask God to use that to help build courage in others, and then go with God because he goes with you.